Thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed. I do
You're welcome.
appreciate this. And it's really basically to get the network or get the people here to just get to know you a little bit more, to be honest. Because obviously we see you as our leader at our Viva MK, and we admire everything you've achieved. But we'd love to know that little bit more about you and what makes you tick and all these sorts of things. So I've got a series of questions here that I'd love to you be honest. I mean, if there's anything here that you think, oh, I don't want to answer that, then obviously I don't want to embarrass you. There's no pressure, you know. But I mean, let's be honest. A question I've always wanted to know is where were you born and how old are you? Are you willing
Oh,
to reveal that?
yeah, that's fine. I was born in a place called Meriden, which is near Coventry. I was born in a hospital that's now a hotel. There's no surprises there, as I spend my life in hotels. And I was born 1 month before John F. Kennedy was shot. Work that out for yourself.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, wow. Oh, okay. 1 month before he was shot.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness
I'm
me.
57 years old.
Sir, you look fantastic for your age. I'll give you
Thank
that. I
you.
do. You have taken me back now. I'm totally surprised by that. I did not think that at all. In fact, because of my bald head, I thought I was older than you. So that says it all. Well done. Well done. You're doing something right there. Now, you're born in Coventry,
Yeah.
and you've obviously in well JFK when he was assassinated. Goodness me. But did you live in Coventry all your life, or have you moved
Yeah.
around at all?
I lived in Coventry for many years. I've lived in London. I lived in Italy for a little while,
Oh wow!
and I've lived in obviously in Rugby as well, which is where I live currently. So
Okay.
yeah, Midlands, London, and Italy.
Wow. What brought you to all these places, and how old were you when
Um,
you moved around?
Generally work. It was nearly always work. Coventry and Rugby have always remained home because family were there and still are there. London was mainly because of work, and Italy was work as well. So it was all work related.
Wow. So how long? I mean, obviously, my background is Italian, so I'm
Yeah.
intrigued about your answer about Italy. So where did you go, and how long for?
Well, I always wanted to work in Italy, and then the opportunity came up to be there working for, believe it or not, the Blockbuster Group. And they were opening
Wow.
stores there, and I was part of that operational team, and I had the chance to live and work there. It was only for about 9 months,
Oh, okay.
but it was a consistent 9 months. I had many opportunities to work abroad, but really that was the only one I really wanted to take up because it has always been one of my favorite countries.
Okay. Whereabouts in Italy was it? Where were they based?
That was based in Rome.
It was in Rome. Did you pick up any of the language or the swear words?
Zero, absolutely not at all.
Probably you do know the
Blissfully
swear words,
ignorant in
yeah.
English.
Did you discover this gesture, which
Yes, I
means
did. I discovered a few gestures.
that's a common one in Italy,
It is very common.
it is, it is. Okay, I've got one that I've been dying to ask you,
Mhm.
and this is a long one. Do you have any love interests at the moment, or?
I didn't get that question then. You must have cut off. Uh, well, I'm assuming you mean love for the business because my
No, I'm
love for the
talking to
business is
personal.
extreme passion.
We know your passion for
I
the
have a
business.
love for art. I have a love for literature.
Okay, yes, that's very true. But
I
do you not
think
have any
that's
love
where,
interests, though, of personal nature?
oh, well, yeah, art, literature, work.
Yeah, it's one he
The
doesn't want to
answer to the
go down.
question is
Okay.
no, I don't.
And your son, Michael. Don't forget Kieran.
Well, of course, he's part of work now.
Okay, but is there any
No, I'm not.
plans along
I'm
that
not
line?
married.
No. But do
No.
you ever want to think of settling down in the future and maybe putting your
Um,
feet up, or is that not crossed your mind?
Well, I think I've got away with it so far, so probably not.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's a strange one. I can plan the business decades ahead. I can plan anything to do with business years and years ahead. The one thing I have very, very, very rarely been able to plan, other than career, is anything personal. I've never been able to plan anything except writing books, which was one of the very few personal things that I ever did or still do. But planning anything personal, when you ask the question, would you settle down or would you like to? Yes, it could happen, of course. But as far as plans go, absolutely no plan whatsoever. If that kind of thing happens, then it happens.
Yeah.
Business, that's a different story altogether.
So it's not it's not on your radar, an ambition to think,
No,
you know, one day I want to settle down.
absolutely. It never really has been, not once. But like I say, when it comes to business and career, that's a very, very different matter. It's almost like I can do that planning to the nth degree, but planning anything personal, not a chance.
You actually, I mean, you did touch on something there about your book writing, which obviously motivated you. What was your actual inspiration? Because you've written
I
more than
used to have
one
a,
now, so what was your
hmm,
inspiration behind
um,
writing the
I,
books?
don't- I found, I mean, I studied literature. One of the things I did study was literature, and I was always fascinated by English literature. I studied Greek literature for a little while, but I was genuinely fascinated by literature as a whole. And I studied a fair bit of Shakespeare. And I used to have a lecturer who absolutely insisted that everybody has a book within them and that everybody has one book at least and everybody should attempt to write. And then being, I guess, a student of Hemingway as well, who always stated that anybody can write. You just have to sit down, and I think the expression was as you sit down to write, you just bleed words. And I found with writing, it was one of the very few things I could do that was relaxing. So I don't really do much relaxation, but writing was the most relaxing thing I have ever discovered. And I found writing 1,000 words a week was enough to be relaxing in an otherwise very, very busy life. And that's basically how it started, because I had a lecturer who insisted, because I loved literature, and I found that writing was one of the very few things that I found, and I mean really relaxing. You know, people talk about when they read, it takes them to a different world. For me, it's writing that can just take you to a different world. And you sit down at the typewriter or the keyboard and you simply bleed, as Hemingway said. You just sit there and you bleed and it just comes out. And that's how it basically happens. So, and that's how the 3 books came about.
And I mean, do you attribute then this writing gene, I suppose, was it down to that lecturer who was the one that sort of said
It was.
everybody
It
can
was a
write?
fascination of literature. I just loved. I just. I just. It wasn't that I enjoyed reading. I always enjoyed how you could use words to almost express anything. I just loved the vibrancy and the passion of words. And that's really what it was about. So it was the lecturer. It was just reading, early reading, but it was also taking part in plays. I played regularly in The Merchant of Venice, and one
Wow.
play that I particularly loved, and I still love to this day. And I just loved the way the characters in it expressed themselves and how Shakespeare made them come alive and did what he did with them. And I suppose it was that early reading, a little bit of play work, and then of course what the lecturer said.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So going by that then, there's more
Mhm.
books to come out then.
Yes, there are. I mean, I have to say, it's like open tabs on your desktop. I probably have 40 open tabs of 40 different books that have startings, and I've started that many books. when I try to do this relaxation bit, I'll start writing something and the story will come from nowhere. And so I've got that many books that I've started. I'd say probably somewhere between 35 and 40 openings to books where I've written the first chapter of a story or expressed some kind of emotion. But none of them have got much further than that first chapter. So yes, there's plenty of books, probably 35 to 40
Wow.
when I get the moment to start doing them again.
So do you envisage any that on that list? So I'm sticking on this theme of book writing, but it's quite fascinating. I do enjoy that as well myself. But so what's your strategy then? I know you said that you've written 3 books. So you're saying that you're very good in business, but this is a personal element.
Yeah.
So how did you keep that discipline? I know you're saying 1,000 a week.
Yeah, it was
that momentum.
It was the only personal thing that I was able to set a goal in. That goal was write 1,000 words. 1,000 words a week. And the first book was 57,000 words. And 57 weeks later, I had a book. The second one was 67,000 words. So in 67 weeks, I basically had a book. And I did not take a single week off writing those. The third book was about 77,000 words. But in between that, work took over for a little while, so there was a few weeks missing. So in about 79 to 80 weeks, I'd written 77,000 words. So it was basically sit down and write those 1,000 words. And it usually went over 1,000, but never below. Because once you start writing, it's like reading, it just flows. You know, don't worry about your audience. Don't worry about what anybody's going to think. Just let the words flow. You know, your editor will edit it afterwards, but for the moment you're writing, let it flow. And so it was 1,000 words. Don't get up until 1,000 words are done. And that can take, if you're having a creative flow, that can take about 3 hours to get a good 1,000 words down.
Okay.
So once a week, 1,000 words. And like I say, 50 weeks later, you have a book.
So, question to you. I know we're keeping on this. I hope our audience are still with us here. But I'm fascinated by this subject because this is a takeaway that all of us who are listening could take away with us, because you're showing us your strategy of how you did it, which I find fascinating. Was there a particular place that you have to sit to do this, or can you just get this magic appear from anywhere, or do you have to sit in a spot?
Only one place I ever wrote, and it was in the kitchen. It was in the kitchen at the kitchen dining table, and I sat there and wrote. It was the only one place. I tried other places. You know, it never worked for me. It was in the kitchen as the light poured in from outside, because there was a window there. I saw the full kitchen there. Sometimes you used to have a candle burning at the end of the kitchen, but it was in the kitchen of my home in Rugby.
Wow.
And I did all of them there, bar the odd few words when I was away, because I was away on business, but generally at the kitchen table. And I think everybody, again, has a spot where they feel comfortable enough to do that. So find your comfortable spot. And I can challenge anybody can write. I think people are just afraid to do so. But once you start writing, the words just bleed out.
Wow. Fantastic lesson there. That's brilliant. I mean, is that a takeaway that you would give people, like a life lesson, or do you have any other little nuggets that you think that somebody would benefit from?
Well,
not necessarily business related.
Yeah, on a personal level, if you're determined enough, you do have to. It sounds boring, but you do have to set that goal. My goal was 1,000 words, and because it's something I enjoyed so much, it was a fairly straightforward thing to do, but the discipline still had to be there, come rain or shine, every single week, without fail, sat in the kitchen, writing 1,000 words. Even if sometimes, because I'd have a meeting at the weekend, I'd have to get up very, very early to write the words. There were times when I wrote some of those paragraphs and some of those pages as early as 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because I was determined to write 1,000 words. And when you have such a strong goal, you don't want to miss that, because the moment you miss it, it doesn't feel good. You know, you don't feel good that you've missed that goal. So it sounds boring, but that goal setting is so important, but you've got to have a reason to do it. And my reason was that I enjoyed it so much, and I had the passion that I'd always had for for reading literature and writing literature.
Wonderful, wonderful. Those are fantastic bits of advice. Right, let me steer you back because I'm
Yeah.
mindful of going through. Do you have any favourite childhood experiences that you want to share?
I would say most of childhood, and I don't. These are things I very, very, very rarely talk about because, well, nobody really asks, so I don't talk about it.
Okay.
I suppose childhood was very, very. It was a lovely childhood. It was whether it was mum's cooking, growing up with mum and dad, or whether it was dad's full cook breakfasts, or just being in that. And many of us are the same, of course, but just being in that environment where there's a safety of parents, and so really there isn't a single memory, but there's hundreds of them, and all hundreds based around just being around the folks, but almost with zero responsibility, because those are the only days you can look back where you truly feel safe, and you remember little things like dad cooked a great full cooked breakfast, or mum was so shrewd, or dad was so sarcastic, and you remember those things. So I'd say the whole of childhood is made up of those kind of memories.
Memories. Okay,
Mm.
fair enough. Okay, do you feel that you have fulfilled your life's ambition? But if not, what would that have been if you literally had no obstacles?
Oh, so as a child, it was medicine I wanted to go into, and I attempted to study medicine. So I wanted to be a surgeon, and that was always instilled within me to want to do to go into medicine. I wouldn't say it's a life's ambition now. It was then. So that was when I was much younger. The thing is, I don't think I'm anywhere near achieved what I want to achieve. And I think, at a very young age, and this usually happens when you lose people, you realize how short life is. And I really have lived almost every day, week, year, with the premise of knowing that life is brutally short. And because it's brutally short, it's almost like your ambition never ever runs out. It's ridiculous. I know it sounds really pathetic, but I'm looking forward to waking up, at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning and going back and doing what I love doing, and that's planning the business and planning what we're going to do, and working towards, a greater piece of business. But most importantly, because life is so short, the ambition is to almost enjoy every single day. And that is born of losses. That's where that comes from. When you lose enough, you value time more than you have ever valued it. And anybody who's lost anybody will feel that and know that.
Indeed. Wise words.
So the ambition is there every single day, but to live a what I would regard a happy, fulfilled, and beautiful life, and to be able to keep doing what I enjoy doing, and that is the ambition, and it's been there for so many years now.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I mean, are you doing something now in sort of with VivaMK of something that you love? I mean, does it get you up in the morning, or do you
Totally.
have days where you get up and you think, oh no, I've got to face my HQ?
No, the only days that happen is when we all are so busy that I'll say to the team, do you know what? I think it's been a busy week. And they'll say, why do you think that? I'll say, because my legs hurt today or I'm tired today. I don't often get tired, but if I'm tired, we know we've had a busy week. But no, I look forward to all of that, all of it, all of the time. And, planning, I even though I didn't know the things were going to happen the way they did. I can go back years, and I'd already said to myself, well, this is the kind of business I'd like to run, but run it in the way that I feel it should be. And that's totally people-centric, because, you know, the business that we're all from, no matter what it seemed like, was not people-centric. It was a huge corporate machine. And yes, people may have felt that it was people-centric, but it wasn't. And I should know that because I was part of the corporate machine. So even in those days, I used to think, you know what, wouldn't it be great to take the best of everything and try and make something alternatively? But in those days, I had no idea how it was going to come about. I didn't know what was going to happen, but that was always a feeling that I had, that to truly take the best of everything and try and make it so people-centric that it becomes unique by default, because it's so people-centric and not a corporate body.
Yeah. Do you feel that you're making paths into this vision?
Yeah, we practice that every single day. You know, when I was first interviewed for Clean Easy, and that's a while back, it was by a guy called George Pollock, and he said to me, don't ever forget that distributors pay everybody's wages, so they come first. And I always remember that. However, that was never really fulfilled. It was just something that was said by that chairman. Nobody else followed that through. But I always remember that being so important. And I tried to instill that into every day of everything I did within that company and any other companies that I worked with. So there's so much that we're putting into this business that through the years, I wanted to put into business, but couldn't, because there was a board-driven corporate machine. And you can't always, and you know that, you're from the corporate machine. You love the idea of people, but you can't do everything that you'd love to, because the corporate machine will stop you. Absolutely. I think it's Santander you've been with or are with. You know what a big corporate machine that is. You can't be Tony Fasulo in that machine in the same way I couldn't do the things I want to do, but the corporate machine will always stop you because it's not really people-centric. It's geared up for profit, which is good. So should all business be. But you should never forget how centric people can be and should be. So almost everything we try and do is from a lesson learned from either companies I've worked with or companies I've known or companies I've been a consultant for. It's all learned from there. And all I used to think was, God, I'd love to do it that way or do it this way or do it that way, but not with that corporate line always stopping you.
Mentality. Yes, indeed. I can relate to that for sure. So absolutely. Now I'm going to ask you, I've got to ask this question. If you could describe your ideal distributor, what would they be like? Apart from me, who else would you consider fits this ideal?
Goodness me! Well, that's
don't
you want me to name people?
No, I'm joking.
No, I mean, I have met in VivaMK in the 3 years that the business has been running fully. Less than 2 years in the current format, but 3 years. I have met more ideal people than you can imagine. And the reason I say that is because, again, they were the kind of people that I wanted to work with that I couldn't necessarily work with because I was stuck with a bunch of corporate entities. But in the network, you once you break away from all that and you're not restricted by anything, you meet what you're referring to as the ideal people, the people that passionately want the business to be a success, the people that are passionately behind you all the time, the people that contact you and as soon as they sense something isn't right because you might have said something odd in social media, they'll contact you and say, are you okay? Is everything okay? You know, when I say real people and real business, these are real people. And so ideal, we're meeting them. We're already surrounded by them. But I couldn't define a particular person through personality or traits, but what I can say is that we have a plethora of them in this business. And I know that from the one-to-one communication I have with so many people in the last 3 years, more than I had in 18 years in Clean Easy. I've had more than that in the 3 years that I've been part of VivaMK. Wow. So we're honestly, we're surrounded by them, and every person at HQ, and some of them, if you recall, were involved with me for many years in Clean Easy. Some of them, all of them people would echo the same thing, that the way the relationship is now is stronger, nicer, and just more genuine than it ever was in the past. And they'll all echo it. And they speak from experience because they were in Clean Easy with me.
Yes, firsthand. Fantastic. That's interesting. Very interesting. Now, here's a question, it's a slightly different angle. What have been your biggest fears over this entire journey that you've sort of undertaken? Obviously, there must have been some real roadblocks and things you've had to work around. But is there any, any single fears you think, oh wow, that could have been a real showstopper for the whole thing? Is there anything you can? I
mean, the one of the things of wanting to live life to its fullest as much as you can is always the fear that A, it could potentially stop, or B, that you're going to let people down. I became obsessed with the fear that I didn't want to let people down because so many people were behind us on this journey. Now, when somebody is fully behind you, they're the people you want to let down the least. So when you go into business or do what we do, even if it's things like opening our own fulfillment, you are taking risks. You take risks all of the time. We moved, £250,000 worth of livestock to make it live overnight. It was a massive risk. And every time you take that risk, which we have constantly done, it's this burgeoning fear that you're going to let people down. And that, as much as you try and live life to the fullest, is something that's very daunting all the time. And it's a constant fear because you're taking risks all the time. Even when we release, I'll tell you a simple, silly example. We released the Outdoors and Pets catalog. We put false flowers on the front. Even that becomes a fear because you don't want to let down the people that have always been behind you. So the funny fear in the office was, hold on a minute, how can you release an outdoor catalog with false flowers on the front? How does that work? And I said, okay, we'll make a joke out of it and it'll work. And you know what? It's been one of the best selling products we have had all year. So to answer your question, any risk you take when you're running this kind of business where so many people have been by your side is a fear. And the warehouse move was one of the biggest. It was such a huge, and one of the reasons was experience, because the amount of times we've moved warehouse and got it so terribly wrong. And Clean Easy was the biggest example of that. So yeah, the fears don't go away because people have been so supportive. It's saying you never want to let them down. Yeah. And like I say, in business, you take risks all of the time. So yeah, I could pinpoint hundreds of moments where I thought, oh, that's a risk, but we've got to do it. But the fear was, can't let people down. Can't let the people down at HQ. Can't let people down in the network. And that is something you've got to learn to deal with. If you don't deal with that, it destroys you.
Yeah. You don't want to be kept up at night having these fears.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
Okay. Right, I'm going to ask you a couple of, because I'm mindful of the time, I'm going to ask you a couple of visionary things. I mean, where do you see VivaMK in, say, a couple of years' time? What's your vision for Viva? Where do you want it to be?
The vision is kind of flowering every single day. So, for example, 1 year ago, we thought, or I thought, or collectively we thought, Wouldn't it be fantastic if we created our own shower gels, for example? I know it sounds silly now, but a year ago, maybe even longer, we thought that that's what we want to do. Imagine that. These amazing, highly scented shower gels, but created for us. And so it was, when I talk about vision, the vision is behind product ranges. The vision is about almost giving people not just what they want, but things they didn't know that they wanted, as Steve quite rightly pointed out earlier. So the vision is to expand that, to make the VivaMK Health program, a lot stronger. It's only been slowed down thanks to components not being available because of COVID and everything, but to create a whole concept of VivaMK Health where people feel good about using the product, that is helping them to feel good about themselves. And it's already happened with the meal replacement shakes. So it's the vision is to grow entire concepts of the business, whether it's brand new, huge product ranges or brand new concepts like health. And we've got, I'd say, 3 or 4 of big projects on the table right now. One we're dealing with almost every day, and you'll hear about in the next few weeks. Again, a huge move for us. So the vision is, I don't tend to base the vision behind numbers, although the accountant does, of course. For me, the vision is about engagement and to create the business that isn't available anywhere else because it's still unique. We basically were just a group of friends who stuck together. That's all we were, that didn't want to let go of a business that we were once connected in. And that's all we've done. And no other business is created like that. No other business has this kind of journey. So it's to continue that ethos of involving people, enhancing people's lives, and producing these huge swathes of product ranges. And honestly, we have that many things in production today that we thought about 18 months ago or 2 years ago. The bath and shower gels may seem like a silly conceptual product, but we thought about it over a year ago, and it's finally going to be available in the book that comes out next week. So yeah, the vision is behind products and engagement.
Okay, so you're not ever considering services as a range? Is it always going to be physical products, or have you ever considered?
That's very interesting.
Services?
If there was a service that, again, we could do in our unique way, yes, of course, it would be considered. I'll be honest, there hasn't been any services on the table because it's been behind things like VivaMK Health, or behind some of the new products you're now seeing, or behind some of the new conceptual products that we're creating. But if there was some kind of service that fits into our kind of people-centric ethos, I'd be glad to explore it. And that's one of the beauties about this business. Nothing is off limits. This is what you call about being away from the corporate machine. Literally nothing we have done would have been possible in the past because there had been somebody on the board stopping it, or somebody who wouldn't be happy with it, or some shareholder that wouldn't agree with it. Now, people come to us with ideas, and we can develop those ideas almost immediately because we're trying to be that people-centric business. Sometimes the best ideas come from people. If you said to me, I've got this great idea for a service, we could explore it, or I could send somebody off to explore it and come back with all the facts. And that's how we've been working things. Okay. So yes, services, I'm open to them. I haven't got any on the table at the moment, but I'm open to them. They fit into our people-centric ethos.
I think maybe that is something, okay, obviously, if somebody comes along with something, because we're, as a distributorship, as a company, we deal directly with the end consumer.
Yeah.
A service, if we had that we could provide, they would be more likely to take on board. But it's good that your book is open for these sorts of things.
Oh, totally, 100%. Great thing about being in this kind of business that you can do that. We could never have considered things in the past, or any of the companies that I've worked with just could not be considered.
Okay. I'm mindful of the time because
Yeah.
we're coming right to the end. But I've got a couple of very quick questions. Do you ever plan to, bring back the trip incentives? I mean, they don't
Yes.
have to be overseas. We could have
No, no,
a
they
trip
don't.
to Scotland if
Yeah.
people qualify. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's something that would get the juices flowing from
Yeah. Well,
distributors.
absolutely. I mean, years ago, I learned throughout many businesses that you have to have an element of being evocative in what you do. Destinations almost evoke that evocative kind of feeling in people, so they're definitely on the agenda without a shadow of a doubt. I don't know what kind. Maybe this time they should involve whole family unions. I don't know, but we're open to exploring all of that. Now, I'm very fond of anything that is evocative in business. And I think we can do things differently. We can do them our way. We don't have anybody stopping us. So to answer your question, yes, they are definitely on the radar, 100%. May even have something to tell you about that when we meet up at the showcase.
Wonderful. Ooh, that's planted a seed for everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, ooh, I certainly am. Right, final question because we do need to wrap up. If you could leave people with a takeaway that you feel would be really beneficial to them, what would that be that they should literally listen to you now for the last half an hour, but they could take away and you think, "Do you know what, that's a great gem of information."
It's simple and it might sound really boring, but it's absolutely 100% true. If I had listened to the people that said, don't do that, you can't do this, that's impossible, you'll never do it, you're not good enough, it won't happen, it won't succeed, none of what we have achieved would ever have happened. Because as much as I've had some brilliant people by my side and behind me all the way, those people were dwarfed by the people out there that didn't want things to happen or hated things to happen or were saying it's impossible, it can never happen. So the nugget is always follow that intuition that you have. And if your goal is strong enough and you have that passion and that desire and your reason why, you will follow it through. And one of my passions and my desires and reason why was simply the people that never gave up on what I wanted to do, as opposed to people that were getting in the way and still get in the way sometimes. So it's simple. Have a reason why and never, ever, ever, ever let somebody tell you you can't do it. Never, never, ever. It was, even on a small level, even 6 months ago, we were being told, you can't open a warehouse. You can't do that. That'll never work. You can't do that. Every step you take, you'll have 10 people telling you can't do it. Whereas you'll have one person who might say you can. And even if you have no one telling you that you can do it, still do it. Never, ever listen to people that tell you you can't do things. Anything is really, truly possible.
Brilliant. I could interview you all night, but I'm mindful of the time here. Thank you, Michael, for your time and
you're
effort.
welcome.
We've really enjoyed that line of questioning, and I really appreciate your time and being open, especially some of your questions you could see you were a little bit unsure about, but I appreciate the fact that you were able to open up in some way and give us some
you're
insights.
very welcome.
So
Thank you for taking
thank
the
you
time.
very
I
much. If we
appreciate
give
it.
everybody can unmute and give Michael a round of applause for that. Thank you, Michael. Brilliant. Thank you very much.